My dear friends, brothers, sisters, let today we talk about what is paradise like. When the last breath left the body, there was no darkness, only silence. Not a silence of emptiness, but of peace, a stillness so complete that it felt alive, as if the air itself was waiting for something sacred to unfold. Then from that silence came a whisper, not in words, but in light. It was soft at first, like dawn behind a closed eyelid. Then it grew gently, like morning opening its eyes for the first time. And I realized this was not the end of life. It was its true beginning. The light didn't shine on me. It shone through me. Every part of my being, my thoughts, my memories, my questions turned transparent before that divine glow. I could see them drift away like dust dissolving in sunrise. What remained was pure awareness, clear, weightless, alive. I stood, though there was no ground beneath my feet. I breathed, though there was no air, and yet I was. Then the light began to shape itself, like music taking form. A horizon emerged, infinite and soft. Colors I had never seen before flowed together like rivers of silk. Gold that hummed, blue that seemed to sing. White that wasn't just brightness, but purity itself. And there, in the distance, I saw the entrance of paradise. It wasn't a gate of metal or stone. It was a threshold made of radiance, a boundary between all that fades and all that is forever. As I drew near, I didn't feel fear or judgment. I felt recognition, as though the place before me had known me all along, had waited since before time began. The air shimmered with a fragrance, like the first rain touching 1,000 gardens at once. Each breath filled my soul, not my lungs, with life. And as I stepped forward, the light seemed to whisper my name, not in sound, but in love. Then it opened. Paradise, a realm beyond description, yet somehow familiar. As if every beautiful dream I had ever dreamed was only a faint reflection of this. The ground was soft as thought, woven of light and life together. The sky had no sun, yet it glowed with a golden serenity that wrapped the heart in eternal morning. There was no shadow here because nothing opposed the light. Every ray, every sound, every motion carried peace. The air itself was alive. It moved with music. I could hear it, though there were no instruments. It was the sound of joy made visible, a symphony that didn't just reach the ear, but flowed through the soul, reminding it of home. And then I saw others. They were walking, laughing, shining, people of light, their faces radiant, not with flesh, but with essence. Their eyes contained stars, not the cold stars of space, but the living ones of love. Every person was beautiful beyond measure, not because of shape or color, but because they were whole. Every heart here was visible, and every heart was pure. No one hid, no one feared. No one compared. In paradise. Every being was perfectly themselves, and yet perfectly united. As I walked among them, I noticed how the ground blossomed beneath each step. Flowers of light blooming and fading, leaving trails of fragrance that carried memories of laughter, kindness, and song. Everywhere I turned, life flowed effortlessly. The rivers, oh, the rivers, they glowed like ribbons of living crystal. Some ran, white like milk, some golden like honey, some clear like sunlight on still water. And yet, they were not just rivers. They were songs made visible, streams of joy flowing from the heart of the eternal. The sound of them was peace itself. They whispered in rhythm with creation, and each drop of them seemed to hum with gratitude. As I reached the edge of one such river, I dipped my hand, though I had no body, and felt the water embrace my essence. It wasn't wet, it was awakening. Each touch carried memory, love, wisdom, and belonging. It reminded me of every tear ever shed on earth, now turned tea. Oh, light. Beyond the rivers stretched gardens, endless shimmering gardens where trees seemed woven from emerald and gold. Their branches danced without wind, and each leaf, oh, each leaf shone with its own heartbeat when the breeze moved through them. It wasn't mere motion. It was the language of joy. The trees sang, their leaves laughed like children, their roots glowed, feeding on light instead of soil. And then I noticed something miraculous. Each tree was alive not only with beauty, but with story. If you touched one, it would open like a memory, showing moments of kindness, compassion, forgiveness, every act of love from every soul that ever lived. Paradise, I realized, was built not of matter, but of meaning. Every flower was gratitude. Every breeze was mercy. Every light was love in one of its eternal forms. As I walked deeper into this realm, I felt time vanish. There were no hours here, no days, no nights, only forever now. The light never faded, yet it never burned. The heart never raced, yet it never stopped expanding. In that stillness, I felt something approach, a presence vast and gentle, not seen, but unmistakably there. It was love itself. It filled everything, the rivers, the air, the souls, the silence between thoughts. It was not something to understand. It was something to become part of. And in that moment, I knew this was home. This was the destination every human heart has longed for. The place behind every prayer, every tear, every act of hope. This was paradise. And yet, it was only the beginning. The soul does not rest here. It awakens. Every joy deepens. Every beauty grows. Every love becomes endless. I lifted my eyes, and in the distance, on the horizon of heaven, I saw mountains that seemed made of light itself. They glowed with colors no earthly name could capture, hues born from the language of eternity. Between them flowed valleys of gentle light, where gardens shimmered, lakes reflected the soul's laughter, and birds of radiance flew in patterns like music notes written across the sky. The birds, their wings were poetry. Each beat of them left trails of melody. Their song carried both peace and power, the sound of creation remembering its source. And as I listened, I understood their music without translation. For in paradise, understanding is not through language. It is through resonance. Every being speaks in the vibration of truth. Every word is love. Even silence here has voice, and it speaks of belonging. As I continued my journey, I came upon a meadow where the light itself seemed to dance. The grass shimmered like emerald silk. The air hummed softly as though every atom were smiling. There were beings, radiant, calm, joyful, sitting together, telling stories not with words, but with light. When they laughed, colors rippled across the sky. When they remembered love, flowers bloomed instantly at their feet. I realized then, emotion here creates reality. Joy manifests light. Love creates beauty. Gratitude births gardens. Paradise is not a place you enter. It's a place you become. The more your soul remembers love, the more paradise unfolds around you. Each memory of kindness shapes the air. Each act of mercy adds another color to the sky. And so every being here shines with a different hue, a symphony of light souls together forming the living art of heaven. I paused and whispered, though there was no need to whisper, I never knew beauty could feel like peace. And in response, the air itself whispered back, peace is beauty when it is eternal. I smiled. I felt tears, though they were not tears of sorrow, but of overflowing joy, and they turned into light as they fell. That was the first time I understood. In paradise, even tears shine. Stay connected to the voice of peace. Subscribe now and keep the flame of faith alive. The light deepened as I walked onward, not brighter, but wiser each. Step revealed something new, as though paradise itself wished to show me not just beauty, but meaning. The air shimmered like thought, and the ground beneath me pulsed softly. Alive with the rhythm of the eternal, I realized something profound. Here, everything breathes together. There is no separation between soul and sky, between thought and creation, between one being and another. Every heart is a note in a cosmic melody, and the song is love. As I moved through the golden fields, I began to sense other presences. They were not strangers. They felt familiar, as if I had always known them, though I could never have named them before. Their light approached gently, not as figures walking, but as radiance unfolding, and slowly forms began to take shape. The first was tall, luminous, calm, eyes like morning before sunrise. When he looked at me, I felt the peace of beginnings, that sacred stillness that comes before the first word, the first breath, the first dawn. And I knew without being told this was Adam, the father of beginnings, not as a man of dust, but as the soul of creation's first hope. He smiled, and in that smile was no pride, no regret, only gratitude. He reached out, and though there was no touch, I felt connection, like meeting the root of humanity itself. He spoke, not in sound, but in vibration, and yet I understood every syllable. Welcome, his voice said inside my being, to the garden beyond all gardens. You have returned to the place from which all longing was born. His light rippled with memories of earth, of rain, of promise. He was not burdened by the past, he was complete. Every story of his fall was healed here by love's eternity. And beside him stood another, gentle, radiant, her eyes filled with endless compassion. It was Eve, the mother of tenderness. She smiled with the grace of 1,000 dawns and said, here, every sorrow has found its answer. Every wound has found its song. They moved aside, and from the horizon came another presence. Majestic, calm, and powerful, clothed not in garments, but in light shaped like purpose. His radiance carried the strength of mountains, and his gaze held the fire of conviction. I knew him, Abraham, the friend of the divine, the traveler of faith. His very being vibrated with trust. When he looked at me, I felt courage itself awaken inside my soul. He said, in every heart that dared to believe when sight was lost, heaven remembers, faith is not blindness, it is vision beyond time. And the sky above us responded. Beams of light danced across the clouds like golden rivers, singing quietly the melody of belief. Then another light approached, one that felt like thunder, wrapped in peace. It was Moses, radiant with a memory of truth. In his presence, I felt the weight of wisdom and the gentleness of mercy intertwined. His eyes burned not with fire, but with illumination. A knowing that came from standing in the presence of the eternal. Mortal life, he said softly, was the climb up the mountain. Paradise is the view from its summit. Here, the commandments of love are not written on stone, but upon every soul. His words resonated like music carved into light, and I understood. Heaven was not about rules, it was about realization. Then, from beyond them all, came a radiance unlike any other. Soft as dawn, yet brighter than all creation. The air itself seemed to pause, as if reverence had a shape. Every color bowed, every breeze became still. From that brilliance, a presence emerged. Not distant, not unreachable, but infinitely near. It was Jesus. He walked as light walks, gently, without force, yet filling everything it touches. His face was calm, his eyes endless, his smile the very definition of peace. There were no crowns, no thrones, no grandeur, only love, pure and unbroken. When he looked at me, time itself seemed to kneel. It wasn't just that he saw me, it was that he understood me completely. Every question I'd ever asked dissolved in that gaze. Every pain, every regret, every tear I had ever hidden was known and embraced. He didn't speak in words, yet I heard him perfectly. His voice was light turned into compassion. He said, you are home. You have walked through shadow to understand the value of light. You have known loss, that you may cherish eternity. You have learned to love, that you may now become love itself. And when he smiled, creation itself seemed to sing. All around us, the others, Adam, Eve, Abraham, Moses, glowed even brighter, as if harmonizing with his light. And I realized paradise is not a place of isolation, but of connection. Each soul shines in its own way, but together they form the one infinite body of divine joy. I asked, though not with lips, for here thoughts are prayers, what language do we speak here? Jesus turned his gaze toward the rivers of light and said, the language of paradise is the vibration of truth. Here, love is the alphabet. Compassion is grammar. Gratitude is song. Every heart speaks, and every heart is understood. As he spoke, I could feel it. When one soul thought of kindness, the others felt it instantly. When one remembered joy, light rippled through all creation. There were no misunderstandings, no hidden motives, no lies. For here, truth is the only breath that exists. I listened. I watched the people of paradise speak without sound. They shared memories as colors, feelings as melodies, thoughts as shapes of living light. Laughter appeared as golden sparks, joy as streams of radiance. And when someone forgave, flowers bloomed from the air itself. The language of heaven was beauty in motion. To speak was to create, to love was to build, to thank was to give birth to light. Jesus walked beside me, his presence like warmth and clarity combined. He said, on earth, words were often walls. Here, they are wings. Every intention rises freely. Every emotion shines without shame. Truth is no longer feared. It is celebrated. I saw souls greeting one another, luminous beings whose faces glowed like dawn after a long night. Some were reunited with loved ones. Others met souls they had never known before, yet felt instantly connected to. Because in paradise, every soul recognizes every other as family. There were no strangers here. No separations of nation or name. Every being belonged. And in that belonging, joy overflowed like spring water. Jesus raised his hand toward the horizon, and I saw millions radiant souls, all moving in gentle harmony, each reflecting the light in their own color. Together, they formed something vast and breathtaking, a living ocean of light, each wave a soul, each ripple an act of love. He said, this is the community of eternity. Here, every soul is honored. Every story is known, and every being continues to grow in love forever. The more I listened, the more I realized paradise was not the end of learning. It was the perfection of it. Every question finds its answer not through speech, but through understanding. Every truth is not told, but shared, like music joining in harmony. Then Jesus looked into the distance and said, "Would you like to see how they live? How love takes form?" I nodded, though no motion was needed. He extended his light, and the world around us opened like a sunrise, revealing new lands. Cities of light appeared, not built from stone, but from compassion. Their walls shimmered with joy, their streets sang softly with gratitude. Every building was alive, made of music and memory, shaped by the dreams of the good. The people moved like melodies, every step a prayer, every glance a blessing. There was no hurry, for time did not rule them. There was only rhythm, the divine heartbeat of existence. And everywhere, the same language flowed, the language of the soul. When one soul thought, "Thank you," the air turned, Ned golden. When another thought, "I love you," the sky shimmered with silver light. When two souls forgave each other, the rivers around them brightened until they looked like molten diamond. This, I realize, is what it means to live in harmony with all creation. To exist in truth so deep that even silence becomes song. Jesus smiled again and said, "The true miracle of heaven is not the beauty you see, but the love you feel. Here, all hearts speak one word forever, and that word is love." Join our growing circle of seekers. Subscribe and awaken to the beauty beyond the scene. The light around me deepened once more, no longer bright and golden, but softer, more tender, like the color of compassion made visible. I felt it on my soul the way warmth touches the skin. Gentle, healing, alive. Ahead stretched a valley of radiance, vast and endless. Every horizon shimmered as if made of living silk. The air itself seemed to glow with joy. I had never imagined peace could have texture, yet here, peace was something you could feel. The air carried the scent of new creation, a fragrance beyond flowers, beyond earth, beyond memory. It was the aroma of love itself. Every breath was music, every sound was harmony, every heartbeat was a note in a divine song that never ends. And as I stepped forward, I entered the gardens of paradise. They were not like gardens of the world, for these were woven from light and life together. Each blade of grass sparkled, as if it had been kissed by 1,000 dawns. The soil glowed faintly beneath, warm and luminous, like golden dust mixed with eternity. Every tree stood as if it remembered the breath of creation itself. Their trunks were smooth as glass, yet alive, pulsing softly with colors that changed like emotions. The leaves shone with gentle fire, and each one whispered a note when the breeze passed through. A chorus of joy, a rustling of eternity's laughter. Some trees bore fruits that looked like jewels, glowing amber, sapphire blue, pearl white, and crystal green. When one fell to the ground, it didn't break, it melted into light and drifted upward again, reborn in new form. Everything here lived in a circle of endless renewal. Nothing aged, nothing died, everything blossomed, forever becoming more itself. Between the gardens flowed rivers, wide, clear, and shimmering. They weren't made of water as I had known it. They were made of essence, of purity. Some gleamed silver white, moving with the calm of moonlight. Others glowed golden like liquid sunrise. Some flowed with a faint blush, like light passing through rose petals. Their sound was more than music. It was understanding. Each ripple told stories of kindness, of mercy, of hearts awakening to truth. When I touched one, I didn't feel wetness. I felt memory. Each drop held the sweetness of forgiveness, the freshness of hope. One river carried the taste of honey, not the honey of earth, but of pure joy, sweet and alive. Another tasted of milk, not of body, but of spirit, nourishing with peace so deep it silenced every old ache. There were streams that sparkled with light like crystal, and others that mirrored the soul's reflection. And as they flowed, they met, intertwined, and separated again, like the dance of time before the world was made. Where they met, flowers grew, not on stems, but on waves. Petals of light floated on the surface, glowing with all colors of the unseen spectrum. I knelt, though there was no need to kneel, and watched as the river carried these luminous petals downstream. Each petal sang softly as it drifted away. And I realized this river did not just flow through paradise. It flowed from the eternal heart. The rivers were the veins of heaven, and their song was the pulse of love that sustains all life. Birds soared above, their wings made of iridescent light. Some glided like whispers across the golden sky, others burst upward like laughter. They didn't flap, they flowed. And each time their wings moved, trails of color shimmered behind them. blue, violet, rose, silver, dissolving slowly into the horizon. Their song was unlike anything I had ever heard. It wasn't melody, it was meaning. It carried memories of peace, unity, and joy from beyond time. When they sang, the gardens responded. Trees swayed, rivers brightened, and flowers turned toward the sound as though listening to a sacred language. I walked deeper and came to a meadow where light fell like gentle rain. It wasn't rain of water, but of purity. Droplets of glow that landed softly and vanished into fragrance. Every breath was calm, every moment eternal. In the center of that meadow stood dwellings, not made of stone or wood, but of brilliance. They rose gracefully, like music made visible. Each home glowed with its own hue. One emerald, one amber, one white as pearl. They had no doors, for nothing was ever closed. They had no roofs, for the sky itself sheltered them. Inside, there was no furniture, for there was no need of rest, only harmony. The walls shimmered like the inside of a seashell, reflecting light in gentle waves. When a soul entered, the color of the dwelling shifted to match their joy. These were homes of belonging, each one a reflection of the soul that lived within. Their architecture wasn't built, it grew as love grows, shaped by every act of kindness the soul had ever given. They were living structures of memory, gratitude, and grace. I entered one. The moment I did, I felt it breathe with me, alive, aware. The walls moved slightly with each heartbeat of peace, expanding, glowing. There were lights suspended in midair, spheres of gentle radiance that moved like thought, responding to every emotion with color and melody. The air inside carried the fragrance of whatever the heart desired. For desire here was pure, untouched by need. One moment it smelled like fresh rain on soil, the next like jasmine or new morning air over the sea. Every fragrance here was not just scent. It was emotion turned into atmosphere. Through the open side of the dwelling, I could see a garden filled with flowers that had never existed on earth. Their petals were translucent, pulsing like breath. Some flowers glowed when you looked at them, others sang when the breeze touched their stems. They bent toward you as if recognizing your soul. And in that garden walked people, radiant beings glowing softly in hues of gold, violet, and blue. They walked not to travel, but to celebrate motion. Their every step left behind traces of light that faded slowly into the air. Some carried bowls that glowed, filled with fruits unlike any known to humankind. They looked like crystalline stars. Some round, some elongated, each shimmering with its own light. When one was shared, it dissolved into the giver's hand, and the taste appeared on the receiver's soul. Sweetness that was not eaten but felt. No one here took, everyone gave, and in giving, each became more radiant. The more love flowed, the brighter every being shone from the distance. Faint laughter echoed, soft, musical, like wind chimes in the heart. I followed the sound and found a gathering beneath. A vast tree whose branches seemed to hold entire constellations. Its roots shimmered like molten silver, spreading into the luminous soil. Its leaves changed color with every heartbeat of creation. Emerald to gold, gold to rose, rose to white, and white to the hue of peace. Around it, souls sat in circles, sharing memories, not in speech, but in light. Each story they told created shapes in the air, visions of kindness, beauty, and courage from their earthly lives, replayed now as glowing art across the sky. When they remembered forgiveness, the leaves above them glowed brighter. When they remembered love, the river sang louder. The tree was listening. The sky was listening. All of paradise was listening. Because here, nothing spoken is ever lost. Every word of kindness uttered in the world below has its echo here, eternal and shining. I lifted my eyes, and beyond the tree, I saw distant hills covered with flowers that shone like morning stars. The horizon curved not downward, but upward, as if the world of heaven embraced itself. In that curve of light, flocks of radiant birds formed shapes that looked like prayers rising. I watched them for what could have been moments or centuries. It didn't matter here. Time was not measured. It was felt. Every second contained forever. And then I understood. Paradise was not just beautiful. It was alive in a way that beauty on earth can only hint at. It was love made visible, peace made tangible, joy given form. Here, even silence is sacred, even stillness sings. Every breath, every movement, every glance is a hymn of gratitude to the eternal. And in that moment, standing among the rivers of light and the gardens of harmony, I realized something deeper. Paradise is not a place to be reached. It is the truth of what we were always meant to be. It is the soul remembering its own perfection. It is the heart finally coming home. Each story here is a seed of light. Subscribe and let your soul remember its home. I moved beyond the gardens, following a melody that had no beginning and no end. It wasn't music from instruments, nor voices. It was existence itself singing. It called not to my ears, but to my being, drawing me closer with every heartbeat. As I walked, the air brightened. Colors became sounds, and sounds became fragrances. Each step awakened new sensations, joy that shimmered like dawn, serenity that felt like silk. And then before me opened the valley of companionship, the heart of eternal reunion. Here, countless souls gathered, each radiant in their own hue. They were not strangers, though we had never met. I recognized every one of them. Recognition here was not through memory, but through essence. Each soul carried a familiar warmth, the kind that only love can remember. There were faces that shone like morning suns, expressions pure, eyes deep with understanding. They greeted not with words, but with light. When two souls met, their radiance blended, colors merged, and for a moment, both glowed brighter than before. In that merging, there was no loss of self, only expansion. Love here did not consume, it completed. Some embraced, and the embrace sent ripples through the air like gentle waves of music. Others sat together in circles, surrounded by gardens that bloomed anew with every shared joy. Everywhere, laughter floated, soft, melodic, pure. It wasn't the laughter of amusement, but the laughter of release, of hearts unburdened at last. No shadows, no doubt, no distance remained. All separations that once divided the world below were gone like mist before the sunrise. And then from the heart of the valley rose a sound, a deep, luminous chime resonating through the endless sky. It was a call, not of command, but of invitation. Every being turned gently toward the sound. From the horizon came waves of golden light, forming pathways that led toward the center of paradise. I followed with them, walking among souls whose light glowed like softly burning stars. Ahead, upon a plain of crystal, a great gathering unfolded, the feast of light. It was not a banquet of flesh, but of spirit. The table stretched beyond sight, woven not from wood or stone, but from luminous threads of radiance that shimmered like moonlit silk. It was alive, breathing softly, glowing with warmth and peace. Upon it rested cups that shone like morning dew, each filled with light that moved and danced as though alive. The vessels changed color to match the joy of those who held them. There were bowls that contained the taste of remembrance, sweetness that reminded each soul of their moments of kindness and love long ago. I approached. I realized the food and drink here were not sustenance. They were celebration. Each sip was a memory of joy rediscovered. Each taste was the essence of gratitude, condensed into eternity. There were no servants, for all served one another. Each soul offered light to another, and in giving, the light multiplied. The more shared, the brighter the feast became, until the entire field shone with the brilliance of 1,000 suns softened by tenderness. And yet, even in all that radiance, there was calm, a stillness that embraced rather than blinded. It was the light of unity, a warmth that whispered, "You are home, you are loved, you are whole." I took a cup and drank. It tasted of peace, not a fleeting feeling, but peace that lives. It filled me with a gentle strength, as if every wound from the world below was being kissed by eternity and healed forever. Around me, songs began, spontaneous, radiant. Voices rose not in words, but in harmonies that spoke directly to the soul. They sang of journeys completed, of pain transformed into wisdom, of love that never ended. Each tone carried light, each melody painted the air in colors unseen by mortal eyes. The sky responded. The stars swayed slowly in rhythm, their light pulsing to the music of the eternal. The rivers nearby shimmered brighter, flowing in time with the song. Even the flowers turned their faces toward the sound, releasing fragrance that rose like incense of joy. In that moment, I understood that this was not a feast of food or drink. It was a feast of remembrance. Each soul remembered what it truly was. Not dust, not shadow, but spark of the infinite. The entire valley glowed as one body of light, one chorus of peace, and there among them, I saw souls embracing those they had once loved on earth. The reunion was beyond tears, too full for sorrow. Each hug created rings of gold that rippled outward, touching all. Even those who had never met felt the joy of every reunion, as if love itself had become shared air. I watched as two beings, radiant, gentle, met for the first time since the world's dawn. Their light merged into one great flare that rose upward, forming a column of brilliance. As it touched the heavens, the stars around them brightened in answer, and a new constellation was born. Here, every act of love reshaped the cosmos. The feast continued. But no one ate too long, for joy itself nourished. Some danced in circles of light, their movement forming patterns like celestial mandalas upon the luminous ground. Others sang softly with hands uplifted, releasing threads of color that wove into the sky like banners of praise. Some simply sat, holding one another in silence, letting the music and fragrance wash through them. Time did not pass, it blossomed. Every instant opened like a flower, revealing infinity within its petals. And then I heard a new sound, faint, distant, like a wind from beyond eternity. It was calling softly, a whisper of purpose, reminding each soul that joy itself was meant to flow outward forever. The feast of light was not the end, it was the beginning of giving. For in paradise, even bliss is shared. No soul keeps its joy, each sends it out, blessing the cosmos in return. Every smile becomes sunrise for another realm. Every act of gratitude births a new star somewhere unseen. I looked around, and in every direction, souls were rising, ascending into rays of color, carrying their light toward distant horizons. They were not leaving, they were expanding, becoming part of creation's eternal heartbeat. I understood then, paradise is not a single place. It is the living web of love that connects every soul, every world, every dawn. The Feast of Light was a mirror of that truth, a glimpse of divine unity experienced as joy. And as I stood there, surrounded by the laughter of eternity, the perfume of peace and the music of love, I felt a voice, not heard, but felt, whisper within. You are not a visitor here. You are a note in this endless song. Tears of light formed in my soul, not of sadness, but of awe. I looked upward, where the sky glowed like the inside of a pearl. And I whispered back, not with words, but with being. You are part of this journey. Subscribe to Paradise Inspiration and let heaven's peace live in you. I lingered where laughter still shimmered in the air and the gardens hummed softly with the fragrance of joy. But even amid such beauty, I felt a pull, gentle, patient, eternal. It came not from above or below, but from within the light itself, a whisper calling me home beyond home. The feast of light faded into quiet brilliance. The music softened until it became a single tone, a pure note that held every melody that ever was. The rivers slowed their song, the flowers stilled their swaying, and even the radiant souls paused in their celebration. For all of paradise seemed to turn its gaze toward that deeper glow rising from beyond the horizon. I stepped forward. The ground beneath me became transparent, as if I were walking upon the surface of a dream. Each step released gentle ripples of light that drifted outward, and I realized the path was forming beneath my will, woven by faith, sustained by love. Ahead, the horizon was not distance, it was awakening. There was no sun, no moon, yet brilliance overflowed. It was the source of light, the eternal heart from which all radiance flowed. Even the stars bowed their shimmer before it, for this was the light beyond light, the origin of all being, the pulse of the infinite. The closer I came, the more everything around me dissolved. Gardens melted into gold mist. The rivers of milk and honey flowed upward, merging into clouds of radiance. Even the air itself turned to breathless silence. Nothing was lost. Everything was becoming one. And then I understood. Paradise was not ending. It was returning to its source. Every joy, every color, every sound, all born from that infinite presence, was now returning in gratitude, like countless streams pouring back into the endless sea. I felt no fear. I had no need for body, nor voice, nor thought. For what could I lose now that I had become light? And so I stepped forward into the brilliance. It did not blind, it welcomed. It did not burn, it embraced. The light did not stand before me, it was within me. It knew me as I had never known myself. It was as though every moment I had ever lived, every smile, every sorrow, every breath was being held in gentle hands made of light and blessed and returned to wholeness. There was no judgment here, only understanding. Every shadow I had feared was simply the absence of this love. Now in its radiance, even my regrets turned into stars, each one shining with the lesson it had carried, and then silenced. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence that comes after a great symphony, when every note has found its place and nothing more needs to be said. In that stillness, I became aware of presence all around me. There were others, not apart from me, but with me, their light intertwined with mine like threads of gold. We were not many anymore. We were one luminous consciousness, breathing as the universe breathes. If there were words, they would have said, "You are the echo of the eternal, and the eternal is the echo of you." But no words were needed. Understanding was the language here, and it flowed perfectly, endlessly, without sound. Time did not pass. There was no past to remember, no future to await. There was only now. And in that now, eternity bloomed, the light expanded again, and for an instant that had no measure. I saw everything, not with eyes, but with being. I saw the birth of stars, the weaving of galaxies, the breath of every creature, the tears of every soul learning to love. And I saw that it was all one motion, a great exhale of the divine, a rhythm of giving and returning, endless and perfect. Then, slowly, the light began to quiet. It did not fade. It became so complete that there was no difference between it and me. I was no longer a traveler. There was no more I. There was only being, only peace. The gardens, the rivers, the songs, the companionship, and the laughter, they were all within this stillness, woven eternally into the presence that sustains all joy. And as this realization filled what was once my heart, I felt the gentlest whisper ripple through infinity. This is paradise, not a place you enter, but the truth you remember. The light trembled softly, not as motion, but as affection. It touched everything, blessed everything. And the whole of creation seemed to sigh in contentment. Beyond words, beyond sight, beyond thought, there was only love. Love that had no opposite, love that did not begin and could never end. Love that was not felt, but was. The silence deepened. The stars exhaled, and I rested, not as a soul, not as a name, but as part of the eternal glow. In that infinite peace, I heard one last murmur from the boundless stillness, not a command, but a gift. Be light wherever light is needed, and with that, the journey was complete. The light did not fade. It became home. Thank you for walking through the gardens of eternity with me. Subscribe now and carry this peace wherever you go.